Hello, I'm your host, Kelly Eckhart, and welcome to The Future Edit. Hello, and thank you for joining me today. I have Farah Liz Pallaro with me. I'm so excited to have her. She's been in the fashion industry for over 20 years. She's an expert in the area. She's also a fashion mentor. She has her own business. She's been a designer. And today we're going to talk about fashion and spirituality, which is something that is very, very important to me, especially on my journey with fashion and spirituality. So thank you so much for being here today, Farah. I really appreciate it. And so basically, let's start off with getting to know you. Let's get to know you a little bit. Tell us about yourself and your background, and then we'll go from there.
Well, first of all, I want to mention that I think you are one of the first persons that bought my book.
Really? Oh, yes.
This is something
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think I messaged you when you chatted and you said, oh, thank you so much. Well, it's interesting because, just quickly, side note, being in the fashion industry and also being trying to find yourself and where you fit in the world and within the fashion industry. And I kept thinking, why is someone not doing this? And then I found you and I was like, yes, someone's doing this. This is so amazing. So I was, yes, it's a great book. We'll talk about that.
In connections that as you, I start, studying fashion design. Well, actually, I studied first law school. It's very common to have professionals in the fashion industry that study something different and then they shift to fashion. It's super common. And at one point, I always was in love with fashion, but I was in love with the craft, not necessarily the system, but I was very much in love with the craft. And I started studying fashion design. So I started studying in Madrid. I didn't like very, posh. So I moved to London and I continued my studies in St. Martin's. And then I started working as a fashion designer, women's wear, and then accessories. And it was through those years, like I always call those hungry fashion years, when you want to reach goals and blah, 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 and your ego is driving the show, basically. That I was feeling more and more miserable because I was saying, fashion is a completely different thing. So it was then by case that life came to save me by giving me the opportunity to teach. I learned about mentoring. I discovered mentoring, which is what I love to do. I started teaching, little by little by case in fashion schools. I was teaching how to project a collection of bags and accessories for luxury companies and so on. And it was in 2009, Kelly, that I decided, I have to reclaim my power. I have to reclaim my life. And I quit a beautiful on paper work job in a luxury fancy company. But everything was perfect in the paper, but I was feeling miserable. I had no life, panic attacks. I started experimenting all the pressure that all fashion professionals have experienced at least once in life. Yeah. And I opened my consultant studio and I started doing consultancy as a freelance for many companies. And then it was there that I started putting in motion the methodology that combines spirituality, spiritual philosophies, and well-being, because I grew up in a family, my mother, my grandmother, they teach me practices. They teach girls. So I grew up thanks to that I started applying this methodology here. And it was then at one point that I said, I have to show this to as many people as possible. And I never dreamt to write a book, never thought to write a book. I don't consider myself a writer at all. But I wanted to put this message, this methodology, which is an entry level, because fashion business and spirituality is an entry level. I wanted to be very respectful, Kelly, with people that especially, I'm Italian, I live in Italy. And when you talk about spirituality, people think about religion. It has nothing to do. It's a different thing. But
Yeah.
so I wanted to be very respectful. So I did this book and said, I'm going to do it. I did not say anything to anyone. I started writing it. And then when I launched it, you can believe people. I mean, now it's very open to discuss about this. I'm very happy with that. But back then it was like, what is this, Farah? What happened to you?
Yeah.
So that, life just said, okay, you are ready. You want to work with me? Okay, so I'm going to put you in this beautiful roller coaster. And it was a blessing since then.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing about, it's interesting because I just took a fashion psychology course because it was one of those things where I didn't need to know any more about the fashion aspect of it. I wanted to know, digging deep. Why do people dress the way they dress? Why do they shop the way they shop? Why do this? And it's quite interesting how you said a lot of people go from law or something into fashion. And why do you think that is? Do you think it's because it's everyone thinks of it as such an exciting industry that everyone wants to be part of this big, crazy fashion world?
You know what? I said this in a conference. It's going to the psychological factor. And this is, something that you study in psychology. Fashion is one of those industry, Kelly, that allows your inner child to play the most.
Yeah.
So especially what you find in fashion, and well, it's my personal case. I don't know if it's yours, but it's very common that maybe as a child we grew up not being fully heard, not being fully seen, So we grew up with those traumas, which fashion industry is full of that. Fashion professionals, when you met people, now that I'm a mentor and a therapist, also in psychology, I realize, oh my God, we all have this because it's very common. So it's a beautiful industry when it allows you to self-express yourself as you are. And fashion allows this. It's like I always said, it has a lot of bad things and we definitely need to change it, but it's not everything bad at all, because in every industry there's good and bad. So fashion, there is always a place where you can play, where you can express yourself. And this is why it attracts a lot of people and sensible people.
Yeah. But I mean, which is great because it attracts, these kind of creatives and also the inner child. But also, as you're proving as well, the fashion industry can also crush that inner child, right?
Yeah.
So this is when you start really questioning yourself or losing yourself, or the burnout that you say in your book about you had all this excitement, you had all this dream, and then all of a sudden the dream kind of fades. So how can the fashion industry keep this inner child alive and also healthy?
Well, the same as with codependence. I don't know if I say this probably in English properly. Codependency, is it right? Yeah. Same as codependency mechanism. This is what happened also in fashion industry. You have a lot of narcissism, and then you have a lot of people that gave their power away, and they, linked to narcissists. This is very common in some relationships, relationships. So there is a lot of abusive behavior in fashion because there's a lot of people that give their power away. I was invited to a conference about mental health for the fashion industry in London. I think it was end of 2018, Kelly. And there was this huge group of fashion professionals, and there was this huge group of doctors, PhD people, and so on. And it was like they were not communicating. And at one point I said, look, to the fashion professionals, we are not victims. I mean, it's very hard what has happened to us, and many times is not something you seek. But when you allow it, you're not a victim anymore. So when I say to my fashion students, for example, Kelly, when you finish the school, say no to unpaid stages.
Yes.
Because the more we start doing those things, the less you're going to see those things out there. Mm-hmm. But if we say yes because it's, a fancy brand name, I'm not going to say name. I don't want to make them publicity. They don't need it.
Exactly.
So they have already enough. This is why they continue this behavior. So we have a huge power in saying no. And And there is a lot of that movement in the fashion industry. And it's more the small emerging designers, the medium designers, because there is this new generations that they are less patient than we were. Our generation, we were accepting many things that were not good. And this is why we went to burnout. But these new generations, they are more warriors, right? They, you see sustainability on environmental issues. They're like, no, I mean, I want to do things right. So I'm very optimistic with this new generation.
And do you think because, when we were first starting out, we didn't have this, it wasn't such a mainstream spirituality, finding yourself, really going inward. So do you think now designers are emerging, knowing themselves better now? Or do you think this is an industry that still really needs to come together? Because you're at the forefront of this, really. Because a lot of times, I loved it that when you were talking about, junior designers starting out, how can you design, for people when you don't even know who you're designing for or who you are as a person? So can you talk more about that, and also you teaching your students this?
There is absolutely, as you say, this generation have access to more information compared to our generation. So they have more awareness of things, thanks to internet, but not only, right? So there is a lot of information out there. There's a lot of free education out there. You want them to know about a topic, there is out there in the internet. The self-awareness, the self-discovery process is something that as you mentioned, I always encourage my students to do. In fact, I do the seminar that is called Self-Discovery Talent Development for Professional Alignment, because as you said, the more you know yourself, the better you are with the world. And to be honest with you, Kelly, I think it's also linked to biology, because human beings, we evolve, and this is part of the process. So the new generations are going to be more involved than our generation, same as our generation was more involved than our parents, For example, we are, when it comes to the awareness and the self-discovery, we are that generation that it was not a taboo to do psychoanalysis. We're very lucky. And when you speak to people in their late 30s, early 50s, everyone has somehow done some sort of psychotherapy or therapy in general. Ask that to our parents. I mean, if you went to the doctor to ask, can I do some psychoanalysis? Like, you're crazy. It was a stigma. So I think this is why these new generations are more awake. Right? So it's evolution process, and also more information for sure. But to answer, of course, your question, the starting point in order to do services and products for the fashion industry, you need to know yourself first, because at the end of the day, it's a group of people doing products and services for other group of people. So this is why I'm always pushing the human aspect, as the pivotal point. It's the connection with everything.
Yeah, exactly. And so tell me about your spiritual journey, because clearly you needed to go through this to understand and to mentor others going through it, or to even encourage, a spiritual journey, right? So tell me about your journey.
Yeah, I always like when people say, tell me about that. Sometimes people say, oh, you arrived to the point of, no, I haven't arrived. I'm still in the journey, same as everyone. And this is very common when you speak with other self-development authors or mentors and coaches. We are all in that journey. So the funny thing that happened with us, the ones that we choose to be service to others, is that life puts you personal challenges to learn something, so to teach to others. But it's so crazy, because this happened to every human being. But in our case, is related to what your community needs. You know what I mean? So I suddenly happened something to me that, voila, when I study the Tao, it said, this can fix the problem. And I find the solution. And then I see my community saying, Farah, can you help us with this? So this is how, the amazing thing that life does, that is perfectly connected in the right. So in my case, as I was saying, Kelly, I was very lucky to grow up in a spiritual environment. So my mother and my grandmother, they were very curious to know, to study all those amazing ancient philosophies that people prior us left us and gift us with that. And there is a lot there. And I always recommend people to read and to study and to do that course. You want to know about shamanism, find a course and to learn those practices, because if they still alive, there must be a reason. Exactly. So what my mind is designed to do in a way is I'm able to create bridges, to create links. And this is what is helpful, you know. So that is one of my gifts, you know. God, universe, however you wish to call it, gift us, all of us, with many things. In my case, I'm able to do the right connection that serves. And when I individuate that, my life changed.
Yeah.
Completely.
That's really interesting how what you said, you know, you're looking to your community and you're looking around you to see what is there that you can, you're basically trying to kind of fix a problem, right? And I was reading not so long about that your experiences are also your expertise. So if you're seeing that, if you're experiencing something and you're feeling this way, then I'm pretty sure that other people are feeling that way too. So how can you provide a service for those around you in your community to kind of help them feel less lost or, you know?
Yeah. Well, you always need to, when you choose to be in service with others, you always need to put yourself in others, which means that, you know, same as when people ask me, oh, I want to write a book, because, you know, it's very common now when you, after 20 years, you become the expert. So your ego said, it's the right time to write a book. I said, oh, wait. And no, the book is not for you. A book is not for you. It's a message for others. And if you write it for you, it's wrong. That book is not going to be successful. Yeah. Same with the services. When I do a workbook, when I do a course, I always think in what others need and how I can contribute to that need, you know, heal them, to give them clarity, give them comfort. And that is so important. You are a tool, an instrument to serve, right? And I always do say this to my mentoring clients, they always laugh, but I say, when you sign for this, your business partner is God. Consciousness, the universe, life, whatever you wish to call it, that's the business partner. So I always say to my business partner, okay, what we do now? You know, what do we do? And it's incredible. And I know this may sound wishy-washy or whatever, but it's so true. You cannot believe that the incredible downloads of information that comes to you when you put yourself in that position, right? Yeah. And that is the key of being in service to others, always balancing yourself, because another thing that is very common in people that is serving others, there is a lot of burnout also there in therapies and everything, because you have the tendency to give priority to others and you forget about yourself. So it's like a dance, you know. Sometimes you give more to yourself, sometimes you focus more on others. It's like a balance of things.
Now let's talk about the process of you writing your book, because you said, you know, you didn't think that you were going to write a book or you're an author, and in this there's so much valuable information and tips, which is interesting because I bought it when it first came out, and I started reading it, and then I put it on the shelf for a bit, and then before I contacted you I read it again. And it's funny how, because you also say, you know, there's a reason for everything and there's kind of a timeline for everything, and that was one of my sayings, like there's a time and place for everything. And then I fell out of love with that and I was like, I'm not so sure. And then reading it again, I was like, yeah, I'm starting to believe that, because everything you wrote in here, even though I'm kind of on my way out of the fashion industry, is so true, that you can apply these tips and information in everyday life, no matter what industry you're in. So let's talk about your process of writing this and your rituals and how you also apply them to yourself in your everyday.
Yeah, well, thank you again for believing in this project and being one of the first fashion light workers. My main motivation, Kelly, at one point I remember when I had my first panic attack. I remember I was working for this fancy luxury fashion brand, and I was responsible as a designer of an accessories line. And it was the last day before holidays started. It's very common that they give you the holidays in August because it's when the companies close. So it was end of July, and my responsible, which is the owner also of the company, because at one point you have to deal with these people, called me very pissed off, saying that there was a problem with a supplier, and I was the responsible if we lost those materials, because apparently they didn't send properly a document or something like that, which is, I made a mistake because I was working 12, 16 hours a day.
Yeah.
I was exhausted. So I did make a mistake, and I'm human. And he said, if we don't solve this, you're going to pay for that. It was like 300,000 euros, Kelly, something like that. And I remember that I closed the phone and I couldn't breathe. And if people have suffered panic attacks, you feel like you're dying, actually. Yeah. You're like you're having a heart attack. Your nervous system goes in panic, in tilt. And when I had the vision of writing this book, that episode came to my mind. And I said, I'm going to write this book so to help as much as possible people to not pass through this. Yeah. That was my motivation. I really, really, with all my heart, wanted to avoid that pain that I passed through to more people in my same situation in design departments, right? Because to what I always said is very good to those organizations of activists, right? That's another chapter, the activist plan. Elite, because that is also an elite. Those activists that work for the human rights in the producers in Afghanistan, that's perfectly fine. We need to do that. But what about the people that work, in the design department of a French fancy house, and they are slaves, treated like a slave, but because they have the clothing line, they dress well and everything's same, and they are treated miserable, paid miserable. So that was my motivation. So like I always said to my clients, if you have a big reason why, that is your compass, right? In everything you do. So going back to what I was saying, because I remember that episode and my mind went to a lot of information. So yes, when it comes to my personal routine, it's in spirituality, it's a work in progress, right? Some periods of your life you forget to do things because you give priority to the things, but as long as you try every day to commit with yourself, and to go back to yourself, and to go back to alignment, and to know that at the end, this life is a video game we all agree to play with. That's really
I like that analogy.
That's the big thing. All the spiritual practices convey to that. So I don't know if I answered properly your question, because it suddenly came a lot of information. So you tell me.
That's completely all good. Absolutely. And a question, because with spirituality comes sustainability. Yeah. And do you think, as our society is moving more towards a sustainable, or hopefully a sustainable industry, do you think this will also have a cause and effect on the way that people in fashion houses are treated? So people are becoming more mindful and they don't buy as much now, and they're kind of being more careful, that this also have an effect on how people are treated, because the whole process will be slower? Or do you think it will still keep going on like the rat race we've been living?
Okay, I think things are going to change in an important way. Not the way we think they're going to change. And something that I want to tell you, I have a friend that calls me Nos because of Nostradamus. He said, you're like freaking Nostradamus. You see things arrive before others. But you just said, for example, Kelly, something. I am moving out of fashion. You said something like that, right? That thing, if you observe, there's a lot of fashion professionals that are leaving fashion. Yeah. In this period. And why? Because fashion is a system that, as many other systems that we have created in this society, is going to be redimensioned necessarily. Because, as you said, our mindset has shifted. When you've been in lockdown for 3 months, it doesn't matter what level of your life you are, you start an internal dialogue and you do to yourself psychoanalysis.
Yeah.
And your priorities change, your values change, and everything change. So what life is doing is putting us in more alignment with what is this new energy that the world is entering, which is an energy of less consumerism, more humanity, more connection, more technology, innovation. That is the energy of Aquarius. You know, people talk, astrologers talks about the era of Aquarius. Yeah. That's the era of Aquarius. So it's the prior era was the Capricorn one, materialist.
Yeah.
So now people know I don't need all that stuff to feel enough. You know, yeah. I prefer the experience rather than the product. So yes, fashion is paying attention to that, and some companies in a very smart way, they are shifting that. What unfortunately is happening, Kelly, and you know also this, is that there is a lot of greenwash and what I always said, ethical wash, right? Yeah. And you know, when you see important brands doing collections and taking as inspiration tarot cards, I always laugh when people ask me. I receive a lot of messages. Do you think that is spirituality? No.
They're buying into what's popular at the moment.
Exactly.
The awakening. Yeah.
Yes. If you can do a beautiful collection inspiring mindfulness, so you can be a very important fashion magazine and do the cover about mindfulness. But if you mistreat your employees because now you have them working in home with half of the money, half of the salary because of the pandemic where it's not affecting them, you know, you're not as spiritual at all.
Yeah.
So same with all this activists that happened, you know, when it comes to environmental issues, when it comes to sustainability. So I think the change is going to happen, but not because actually that system of the industry wants to do it. It's because a bigger energy is going to say, time's up, you know? Yeah. So I believe in that. And I believe that the new small talents, emerging brands, the small ones, I believe the change is going to be from bottom to top, Kelly, not from top to bottom.
Yeah.
That is the new energy we're going to. Community.
Yeah. Well, it's really easy to see, or quite clear to see, that it's not going to come from the top to the bottom, because they've been at the top for a really long time and people are still suffering, right?
Yeah.
People are still not getting paid in factories and, you know, having to travel days to get to the factory, not see their families, and you know, it's a vicious cycle. And it's nice to see that this energy is shifting and it's coming from the bottom up, because now we're seeing that we have this power, right, to take this into our own hands. Now, speaking of energy, because you also talk about how we have auras and energies, and so and you also talk about black as well, which is interesting because I've had this conversation so many times recently, just kind of falling out of the sky, like black and this and this, and I just watched a video recently and about this, and I'm still, because I love black and I wear a lot, but what is your take on energies and colors, and how would you describe your style, and do you wear black, and do you have certain colors that help your energy and kind of your auras around you?
Yes, I often get that question because people, when they met me, I believe they're waiting me with like a white kaftan, you know, walking on top of the water or something like that. I said, no, I mean, but colors are very important because they, same as our chakras, right? Yeah. When we clean the chakras, we use the power of the color to help them clean the chakras, right? So color is a very important thing because it also connects with emotions, right? Yeah. So that is, and emotions is what drives the world, because it creates energy, expansion energy, you know, when we have high vibration emotions or low vibration emotions, right? It shifts the direction of the world. So when it comes to black, I do wear black very few times. I don't use it that much because black attracts. So I'm very much aware. The more I study spirituality, Kelly, you become very aware of the energy, of what energy is. And if you speak with a physician, it's the same. It's so funny because you put a philosopher, a physician, and a Buddhist speaking about energy, and they're saying the same thing with different names.
Yeah.
So I'm very aware of my energy. So I know that when I put black, I use black just when I'm in a place want to attract and absorb that energy.
Okay.
For example, when I went to Tokyo, I wear black when I was in the temple. In the Zen temple.
That's cool.
Yes, yeah. In the Zen temple. And you see a lot of monks wearing black. But if I'm in a place where I know people around me is nervous, stressed, I wear white or very clear colors, because white do the opposite as black. It reflects.
Yeah.
So it creates a protection system.
Yeah.
The problem when I say in the fashion industry is so crazy that a lot of people wear black because it makes you, it's elegant, because we grew up with the Yamamoto and the beautiful,
exactly.
beautiful Issey Miyake and all the people, which beautiful. But when you're in an environment where there is a lot of abusive behavior, a lot of sadness, fear, and you wear black, you go home with all that energy in you. And this is why I was saying to fashion professionals, like, do not wear black. You think you're hiding, you think you're protecting yourself. You're not. You are attracting all that energy to you.
That's super interesting that we've had this opposite thought for so long, you know, and I have a friend, her and her husband, are quite chic, and they wear black a lot. And then all of a sudden she sent me this video and I was like, yeah, whatever, and I'll check it later. And then all of a sudden they're wearing like creamy colors, and I was like, is this why you changed? And she's like, yes, this is exactly why we changed, because we want to represent, we want to have this positivity around us, we don't want to absorb it all. It's like so interesting. And so with the chakras as well, on that topic, do you find that if you're needing kind of more energy and opening that chakra in that area, is it good to wear that color?
Well, not exactly. When it comes to the chakras, you need to wear the color of the chakra you wish to express more in that moment. I tell you an example. Every time I go to a talk, I then pay attention that I was doing this, but I was not doing it consciously. It was myself doing it for me. I always wear blue, like blue, and because it's the throat chakra.
Yeah. Okay.
And when I have to do things that are for fashion, but very much linked to spirituality, I wear purple because it's so it's so crazy. But so that is how you put attention, you just paying attention to those colors, right? That represent. And besides the chakras, just follow the colors that makes you feel good. Because when you wear them, it means that your energy is in vibration with that color. So you will understand. And it's the same with the fabrics, Kelly.
Yes.
There are fabrics that, going back to sustainability, everything in life is energy. Like Tesla used to say, I always love what Tesla said and did. I mean, the world's about frequency, energy, and vibration. So fabrics are the same. There's some fabrics that help you to vibrate higher than some fabrics that download your vibration. Because also every product we buy has the energy of that person doing it for you.
Yes.
So when you buy a €9 t-shirt, you are not paying the full price. Someone else is paying that price for you. And it's most likely a worker bad paid in the other side of the world.
Yeah.
That product has a very low vibration.
Yeah.
So it's the same with food, or beauty products.
God, I mean, it's so nice that you are, really trying to educate people about this, because then if people became more aware, it's all about education, right? It's all about that we're all informed about these things, because then maybe it will make people think more about, oh, wait, I'm not going to go to the grocery store and buy this in plastic. I'm going to go to my local market instead, because someone picked this and it's probably a family farm or things like this. The same with your fashion products, right? When it comes to the whole supply chain, when you can see that there's a completely open supply chain. It's visual. You know what's happening with these things. It's really, really beautiful. Now I wanted to ask as well. So basically, we've been talking a lot about fashion, but how can people apply your rituals, because, you know, the nice thing that you said in your book was there's two kinds of people. There's people that live in love, that love and fear. Mm-hmm. And how can you, I'm stumbling over my words, apologies. How can you basically get out of this fear? What can you do? What rituals can you do to help you leave this fear behind and live a life of love? Because then with love, you can move forward and kind of be in a happy place, right?
Yeah, I don't remember exactly how I mentioned in the book, but it's, you know, we all are made of love. Let's just start from there.
Yeah.
You know, love is our predominant energy.
Yeah.
But we enter in a society, in a three-dimensional world that is very much fear design. Mm-hmm. And, you know, after years, you learn that there is a reason for that. Because it's friction that creates light. So we need the darkness in order to bring the light. Yeah. So the world is designed that way, even if many times it's terrible, very terrible because of that. So the thing that I always said to people is that we need to know that we are an alchemy of many things, right? As human beings. This is why we're so magical. This is why we're like unicorns, right? We are an alchemy of many things, right?
Yeah.
So 3 of the main areas is your body, your mind, and your spirit, your soul. So try to feed positively the 3 areas, which means body. The body is a great partner when you keep it in high vibration. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the food, be very much mindful of what you put in your body. You know, what food, you know, high vibration of food. Hydrate yourself. So create a routine, especially when there is a lot of tension in the world. Like now, you know, there's a lot of very bad things happening. Yeah. We are all one. So it's going to affect us, even if you're in another side of the world. So make sure you are either treating yourself well, you're using the right foods, you're trying to avoid alcohol, all the stuff that decrease your energy level. And the same goes from the mind. I always say to people, do not watch the news.
Yeah.
Means that doesn't mean that you don't have to be informed. Yes, but buy a newspaper or just select a specific news channel that you know they're not throwing away whatever, you know, because that is going to create fear mode in you all the time.
Yeah.
So what you put in your brain is as important as what you put in your body. Yeah. And it's the same with, you know, the TV or the movies or what you read.
Yeah.
Right? So feed your mind properly. So once you do, you're feeding properly your body and feeding your mind properly, then goes the spirit. And the spirit is the same. You know, what does feed the spirit? Doing what you love, what brings you joy, what fires you up.
Yeah.
So for example, when you're a designer, you know, painting or working with the craft is something that, opens your heart. I always say to my clients, set at least 1 hour a day to do that. It doesn't matter. You're not going to use it professionally. It's to feed your soul. Yes. Because the more you do those things that you love, the more a magnet of positive things you become. And suddenly you start seeing that life brings you amazing opportunities. You know, connections, work opportunities, whatever, you know, like gift, because that is how you attract, you know, what God wants you to give.
Yeah.
So in my case, because I have my moon sign is in Virgo, even if I'm a sun sign Leo and rise sign Aries, so thanks God gave me a Virgo to say to these two, hey, stop it. You know?
Exactly.
I love routines. the moon is the one that represents more your inner child. So my inner child needs routine. So I love to wake up early and do my prayers and do my meditation. And I always have my stones close to me when I go to sleep. And I always have my candles, and I always do my Pilates and yoga and all those things that we all know.
Yeah.
But to be honest with you, Kelly, they're not that relevant. That's what you discover moving forward. It's not that yoga changed your life. It's a tool. Yeah. So every tool that, going back to Asian people before us, leave us to achieve well-being, use it. Pick the one, like I said in the book, that fits for you, that resonates with you, that fires you up. And that is how your spirit will be also nurtured, right? In connection.
Yeah, that's wonderful advice. Wonderful advice. So what are your next plans? Because you're consulting, you have a podcast coming up as well.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to that. And,
of course.
And you also said something about an academy.
Yeah.
Are you starting an academy? Or?
Yeah. Yes, I started already. Before COVID arrived, I had plans to do, I always dreamed to do an academy for fashion professionals, an affordable academy, which is mostly free. And then there's going to be a membership side, but a very few money, because I believe in the power of free education, that we all deserve it. Yeah. And I always said, those talented fashion students around the world that maybe they don't have the means, the money to go to London to study, or Paris or whatever, right? So I had all these plans that I have to change, like everyone. Life is telling us, no, you thought that was the direction. I'm going to put you here. But now I understand why they make me do these changes, because now everything connects. So if everything proceeds as the planning, by end of May, my website is going to have a restyling where you're going to have the Fashion Business Spirituality Academy, the Fashion Light Workers Academy.
Nice.
With free resources, constantly free resources, just donation based. You believe we're in the right path, you feel free to donate, because that, of course, is going to help me to do more resources, more free resources. But then there's going to be a membership side where it's not anymore just for fashion professionals, Kelly, because what happened is that life is expanding what I do into other creative industry, but not just fashion professionals. The community, I'm just paying attention to what the community says, as I mentioned. So the community has grown into people in the beauty industry, in the design industry, in the wellness industry. So I don't want to exclude anyone, right? So if I put just fashion professionals, somehow other people will feel excluded. So that is what is going to happen in end of May. Nice. And also I started last year study psychology at Yale, because I wanted to add to my mentoring programs also the psychological aspect. I don't want to be a therapist in that field. I wish to stay as a holistic therapist, which is, is
I'm that direction too. Yeah.
Exactly. But every time I see that if I learn this is going to, for me, possible to support better people, I do it. So, and then, yes, the fashion business spirituality, at one point, it was supposed to be launched in Italian and in French, but COVID stopped everything. So now we got. And the second book, hopefully, is going to come, which is, the fashion business spirituality speak to the juniors and to the students, the juniors, and then it ends in the seniors. Yeah. But I wanted to do a second book that speaks about the entrepreneurs,
That's a good one.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. And that is what, I changed it 2 times, because every time I'm having a lot of new information that I think is going to be helpful. So this is what is hopefully next. But what is really next is what life wants me to do. So I'm just,
That's so important that you say that. You also keep an open heart, because you never know, you can be going in a certain direction, like you say, and then all of a sudden life, God, universe, whatever says, actually, we're going to take you this way because you're really needed here. You know, and sometimes it doesn't make sense, but you're like, okay, I'm learning to go with the flow. Just go with the flow. Go with the flow, because you could be surprised, you know,
Of course.
what's just around the corner.
Of course. And it's, for example, in my personal case, what the pandemic gave me, what 2020 gave me, is something that is very common. We will say in this to therapists, that we tend at one point to forget ourselves, and we just focus on our mission, right?
Yeah.
And this is why I have to redo things, because personally speaking, life told me, you're taking care of yourself first.
Yeah.
And I had some back issues that I have nothing dangerous, but I was in bed for days, and that, then I understand why I have to pass through that.
Yeah.
Because that is also a precious experience that I can put in the second book, because a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the fashion industry, that you forget about yourself, and it's everything the business, right?
Yeah.
Or everything your mission, or everything, especially when you wish to do good. God, your ego, which is very smart, says, aha, you want to do good, so now I'm going to be the star here. Because the worst ego is the spiritual ego, or, the service ego. Because it covers with this thing of, like, I always laugh with my friends, I have the complex of Mother Teresa of Calcutta, right? No, it's like, it's you have to take care of you, like when you are in the airplane and they tell you put your mask first and then you can save others.
Yeah.
So that is the same. So that was my personal experience, and I now understand it's precious information that can help to professionals. So this is why.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good advice. So 2 more questions before we go. So for someone that's kind of fashion or not, that is on this awakening or starting their journey to something new, what's the one piece of advice that you have for them?
When you're starting the awakening process, when they wake you up, you mean? Patience, a lot of patience, a lot of patience, because it's going to be hard sometimes, it's going to be frustrated sometimes, but always know that there is a bigger and more beautiful design for you, and you're taken care of. So just like, the think of the roller coaster, I think it was Louise Hayes that she said this, the moment that she allowed the spirituality in her life, it was like a roller coaster. Saying when you go to the roller coaster, you just let yourself go. You cannot control that machine. You just enjoy the process. You just enjoy the ups and downs. You just allow the ups and downs. And that is, what I recommend. So there's going to be a lot of moments that are going to say like, wow, incredible. But a lot of moments where your ego is your protection systems, which your ego is a protection system, is going to try to fight that. But if life gift you with the awakening, oh God, you're blessed.
Yeah.
You're blessed. Because it's a gift, Kelly, not many people have. And this is also why it's our responsibility when we are in the awakening process to help others to pass that bridge.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. That's absolutely true. And the nice thing too about the awakening, like you said, when we're going through it, it is our responsibility to share it with others, because we still don't know where we're going, but that's okay. Because it's just allowing you to, the things that you're learning, if you share that information, it's going to make it so much easier for others that are standing in this position going, I don't know what the fuck is happening to me. And then, when they hear your story, they're like, oh, it's going to be okay. Like you said, patience, I'm going to be okay. It's a roller coaster, right?
It always go to the right place.
Yeah, exactly. So my last question for you is, because my podcast is called The Future Edit, and it is about doing the inner work for a healthier future you. Describe the future you. What is a healthy future you?
I'm trying to understand how to express, because of course there are some things that I wish to achieve.
Yes.
But I'm not sure that is going to be my future. Because if you asked me 20 years ago that you say to me, you're going to be doing this, I'm going to say, no way. I discovered that the things that are important for me are simplicity. Mm-hmm. Have a simple life. It's so important for me. Yeah. Freedom. Yeah. Absolutely. Joy. Yeah. And of course, connection and love and health. So I wish whatever I will be doing 10 years from now, I wish that my life has these ingredients, right? Yeah. And that is what my soul desires. And moving forward, I think I will be focused more into the writing but because also the writing and also the platform will allow me to have more space for my personal life. I would love to be a mother, you know, so this is personally speaking what I would like to achieve. And again, you know, depends if it's in my destiny. Yes, if it's not in my destiny, you know, I'm not super young. So even if we as women, we can have still kids, you know, we're not same as our grandmothers that at a certain age it was not possible. But that is, you know, the present close future that I wish to. This is also why I moved to Como, always places where you can have a lifestyle, a calm lifestyle, but at the same time I'm close to Milan for the appointments and everything. Yeah. Yeah. This is the future. And I think the more serene we are in our future, the more serene the world will be because we create the world, right?
Yeah, that's a beautiful future you. That's the thing. I think so much of the time we focus on what we're going to be doing when actually the future you is, are you content? Are you full of joy? Are you happy with where you are at that moment in the future? And I think this is really, really important. Like you say, the more serene we are, the more beautiful future the world is going to have. So,
absolutely. Yeah, because, you know, we buy that illusion of the achieving, you know, then our generation of women, we are very much mans into that, you know, because we have this hierarchy systemic thing that we wish to achieve what our mothers maybe did not achieve and so on. And you know, when you seek those social successes, let's call it like that, at the end, you know, same as what people, many of my clients say, no, because I want to make that profit, that money, that budget. And no, you don't want that. You want freedom, or you want what you believe money gives you, or you want it. So at the end, I think it's important that we go to what is beneath those achievements, right? Or recognition, visibility, or blah, blah. You know, that is what you want. I mean, the people that now are like pushing as influencers, like the activists. We're talking about the activists. Exactly. Yeah, many of them do things from the heart, but many of them, you can tell they're doing it for visibility because maybe they didn't have a visibility in their normal fashion system. So they saw that if they shift to that, they're going to have visibility. Yeah. So, you know, so being honest to what you really want, and then if that is what you want, visibility, go for it. Exactly. No problem. But, you know, it's not the movie that you want, or it's not the show that you want. You want something different.
Yeah. Brilliant. Oh, thank you so much for your chat today. It was so beautiful. Learned a lot, and your expertise. And for those of you or those of us that want to get to know you more or follow you, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, the easy way is, you know, you go to my website, farahliz.pallaro.com. And if you want to sign for the newsletter, you will be updated. I do not spam newsletters, you know, and I'm going to change that because with the membership is going to be one newsletter and the other one's another one. But, and it also the socials, you know, you can find me. I don't usually use Facebook. I'm more in Instagram and LinkedIn and Pinterest.
Brilliant. Well, I will link all of these below and also on my website so you can find Farah. And so thank you again. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you like what you're hearing, please like us, subscribe, and tell your friends. You can follow us on Instagram, The Future Edit. And for more information about my guest and myself, you can head to thefutureedit.com. Until next time, ciao.